H-U-L-L-C-I-T-Y. That's all we need.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Tigers Down Under. Back with you for another year. I'm joined by Mike, and I'm Alex. How are you, Mike?
Yeah, doing well. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Very pleased with the results that we've had since our last episode. We were sort of signed off for 2022, looking ahead to 3 games against Blackpool, Birmingham, Wigan, thinking, sort of 4 or 5 points would be about the par, would be about the expectation. So to receive or to return 7 points from the 3 games was pretty spectacular, I thought.
I'm not going to complain. I think it's nice to see us, at least like the methodology being put into play. And, I'm assuming that the first loss, everyone's going to start yelling, hey, we shouldn't be playing out from the back. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think, obviously we'll sort of, we'll touch on the Blackpool game. It was so long ago now, it doesn't hold a lot of context or relevance going forward. But I guess just to say, starting with that game, that 1-1 draw, sort of following on from a similar draw against Sunderland the week before. I think it was the Blackpool game where actually the goal was scored from that sort of playing out from the back or playing around at the back, where it went back to Ingram and he sort of dawdled on it and then played it out to, I want to say, Woods, who lost the ball for Blackpool to score the goal. But we did see, obviously we'll talk about the Birmingham Wigan games after, but we did see there was that progress in those games where if the ball came back to Ingram, he would then fire it long. And it feels like there's that development and understanding as the players get to grips with this game style a little bit more, which helps.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's new for all the players, and seeing them adapt to it, like you mentioned. I think the first thing we called out in that Birmingham game was anytime it did land to Ingram, he was very quick to either distribute it and not hold it or clear it. Whereas like in the last few games, it's been a real concern that whenever it's gone back to Ingram, I've almost panicked because if there's a high press against us, it's most likely that we're gonna stupidly try to play it out and then we end up losing the ball. So it's nice to see that bit of development.
Yeah, and I guess touching on that Blackpool game, I sort of, but the fact that it was such an echo of that Sunderland game, you talk about the fact that when that first loss comes, people might get a bit more antsy. But even then, with that Blackpool result, people were getting a bit antsy that there'd been so many draws. We weren't able to capitalize when both Sunderland and Blackpool went down to 10 men. I guess just touching on, how did you feel coming out of that Blackpool game? Were you sort of still positive in seeing this improvement and thinking, the wins are going to come? Or was it more a case of, we're dropping a lot of points here, this could actually suck us, into the relegation zone?
I think it was definitely the latter, especially immediately after the game. Obviously, Birmingham and Wigan hadn't happened yet. So it was really hard to see us really picking up points, because if we can't do it against 10, what makes us think we can do it against 11? And Blackpool was a perfect example where we had, I think, a lot of possession once they went down to 10, but we just couldn't do anything with it. And I think I was concerned that was going to become a pattern for us, because it obviously happened the game beforehand. But now that we've had Birmingham and Wigan, I think the positivity has come back.
It definitely does help frame it a lot better when you kind of look at it as, it was almost the worst result. Well, it was the worst result of the 3, rather than one of the better results. You can actually sort of say, yeah, it wasn't actually too bad. The other positives, we got to see Ali make his first appearance coming back from injury. I think he played about 30 minutes. I'll probably speak a bit more about him in the Birmingham game and the Wigan game, where I'd like to see him sort of progress a little bit more. Hopefully he's fine after that injury in the Wigan game. But just in this game, it was just good to see him back and on the pitch.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I'll touch on it when we review Birmingham. But it was good to see him. I think he was pretty excited. I think his 30 minutes weren't necessarily the best, but that's to be expected given, one, how long he's been out, and two, he hasn't really played in that kind of environment. I think everyone knows, or at least everyone who plays football knows, that you can be training fit, but then there's a different fitness for match fitness. Yeah. And I think that's what he was lacking, which is fair enough. But luckily he got a start against Birmingham.
Yeah, that's right. Well, look, I'll give my votes for this game. We'll move on to the wins, which will be a bit more fun to talk about. Look, I went really simple with this one. I went, 3 votes for Oscar just because he managed to snatch the equaliser to keep us in the game, and give us that chance to push on for a win, which unfortunately we couldn't take. But good to see him back on the score sheet in that one, which, as we'll see, sort of kickstarted a bit of a scoring run for him. 2 votes for Seri. I thought that was at the time, I thought that was his best game of the season, but I think he's probably even bettered that in the last couple of games as well. And I actually gave 1 vote to Longman, who I thought, my memory of the game at least is he was actually looking really sharp. And even in the more recent games as well, I think Rosenior is starting to use him really well. He had a really slow start to the season, but he seems to have picked up a lot and he's looking really dangerous in those forward positions.
Yeah, I agree. I think I wouldn't really change much for the 3. If anything, I'd probably say Longman has been consistently good under Rosie. And I think prior to kind of Rosie coming in and like obviously with like Dawson, I think we were very quick to get on the back of Longman. But I think his work ethic recently in the past few games, and I mean, I'll say it against Birmingham as well. Like he was incredible. I think, I'm pretty happy to see him amongst the 3, the 3-2-1 for the MVP.
Yeah, nice. Actually, as you said that about him playing well under Rosie, it makes me think, because I know Rosenior was the under-23s coach at Brighton, and to one of the reasons that we'll talk about potential incomings with Connolly potentially coming in. I wonder if I assume he would have managed Longman at some point in the Brighton under-23s, so there might have been that sort of prior connection, which would certainly help their chemistry, I suppose.
It could be.
Would be interesting. Okay, well, let's talk Birmingham. Finally cracked the 3 points. I think Rosenior said coming out of the World Cup break to sort of treat this almost as a clean slate, a new season. If you look at it from that perspective, we had the draw with Watford, the draws with Sunderland and Blackpool, but finally to get the win against Birmingham and to get the 3 points on the board was really positive to see. You sort of talked about the fact that, when we're pressed and we're playing around at the back, it can be our undoing. And I think there is an element to be said for the fact that Birmingham and Wigan probably don't press as strongly as some teams. So the jury might still be a little bit out, but it certainly felt like against Birmingham that we dealt with their pressure a lot better than we had been in the past.
Yeah, I think if it had been a team that probably pressed higher, we might not have been as comfortable. I mean, I don't think Birmingham really threatened that much. I remember a shot on target in the first half, but that's really it. It seemed like they didn't want the game, or they weren't taking it to us, other than in the last kind of 15 minutes when they were chasing the game. But overall, I think it was a better performance.
Yeah, and I think it was interesting because obviously, so Doherty came in for Woods and Ali came in for Tufan into the lineup. I really liked the look of Doherty in that midfield with Seri, and we saw it again against Wigan, and I thought it worked just as well in that game as well. But Doherty's had to bide his time a little bit under Rosenior, and so it was good to see him given that chance, and he really seems to have taken it.
Yeah, and it was his 100th appearance as well.
Yeah,
and I think this is just personal preference. I prefer him over Tufan in terms of the way they play. I think I enjoyed Tufan coming off the bench and being able to control it a little bit more. But Doc's energy is relentless. I think him with Seri is like the playmaker is a very strong combination.
Yeah, and Oscar with his second goal, you were saying before the podcast, I'd sort of forgotten, but the fact he scored 77th minute in both the Blackpool and the Birmingham games was a cute little coincidence. But he went on that big scoring run in August, and then he sort of had a bit of a dry spell when Tete got injured, and then he had his red card suspension. But great to see him back on the score sheet.
Yeah, and he's the first player since Bowen to get 10 before the end of the year, I believe.
Yeah,
the end of December. I think he just knows where to be and is very good at following the ball and just making himself really annoying for the defenders. I think he got in front of a defender to score the goal. Bear in mind, it was great play from Smith and Christie to get it to Oscar. The only thing I'll say about, because you mentioned the lineup, and I think you mentioned Ali coming in for Tufan. I, at the time, thought it was too early to bring him back for a starting 11 spot. But, he had 60 minutes of the game and then came off. But I still think, especially after being injured for that long and that type of injury that he had, and the way that he plays, he's very explosive, he's very quick. I just think it may have been too soon.
Yeah, and we'll probably talk more about it with the Wigan game. It felt like he almost felt it was too soon, just in the sense that, as you say, he's very explosive and quick, but it almost feels like he's not willing to or feels comfortable using his full pace yet because he doesn't want to re-injure himself. And we saw it more against Wigan, where he'd get the space and then really not get to the byline and whip it in. He'd sort of he might jockey with his opponent and then pass the ball in field or something like that and not really take them on. But he doesn't seem to have come back the same player yet. And it could just be a confidence thing. It could be that he's not feeling 100%. I guess time will tell on that one. But yeah, I think, as you said, I probably would have played him off the bench again against Birmingham at least, just to sort of ease him back into it.
Yeah, and we'll speak about it when we review Wigan, but I'm concerned that, that may have been something that could harm us for the rest of the season. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, just on Oscar as well, he's a funny one because he's a sort of striker, actually, where I feel like the more time he has to think about it, the worse his shot will be. We saw it earlier in the season against, I want to say, I think it was Sheffield United, when we had that massive counter and he was basically 1-0 the keeper. And he was like, he had all the time in the world and he couldn't finish it. But then you see time and time again, he'll just bundle the ball in, or he'll just, knock it in off a rebound, off a defender or something like that, where he's, as you say, he's just in the right spot at the right time. When he's instinctive, he is deadly. But I feel like when he's got so the penalty as well, when he's got that time to think about it, he just can't seem to finish.
Yeah, I agree. I think the less thinking he does, the better where we are.
That's right. And look, it was a weird result as well, actually, with the 1-0, because it felt like it really should have been at least 3-0. When you consider we had the goal for Longman ruled out, where I'd say he's probably onside, because he seems to be right on that line. Yeah.
I'm going to say it was onside.
Onside, yeah. And you see from Rosie's reaction, I mean, he gets booked for his complaints to the ref. You can imagine for him at 0-0, you're seeing a presumably perfectly good goal ruled out. I mean, that's a lot of pressure on the manager to say, we've been on this sort of drawing run. We need to get the win somewhere. And you get these sort of fine margin calls going against you. You must feel like, the world's against you at that point.
Yeah. And it was a great ball from Doc as well. I think, we had all expected it to stand. Smith almost having a tap in with Christie's pass being a hit as well. There were opportunities to keep going. But I think the fact that we could hold on was almost as impressive.
Yeah, that's right. I think a clean sheet's the main thing. Coming away with the 3 points in the clean sheet was a really good result for us. Did you have your MVP votes you wanted to give for this one first, and then I'll give mine?
I back yours because I think they all had great performances. Although I probably put Oscar ahead of Seri. So I give Oscar the 3 just for being the striker that I think we've been waiting for. And that we've been asking for a very long time. Seri then for 2, and then Doc for 1.
Yeah, so I'll go Seri 3. Yep.
I was just going to say, I'll give honorable mention to Longman again for almost scoring a goal, I think, in the first half, and having that header ruled out unfairly. If things were different, I probably would have given him the 1 instead of Doc.
Yeah, fair. On that comment about Oscar, which is one I definitely agree with. Question I'd want to put to you just before we go into the Wigan game: who would you rather in their prime for City? Would you rather Hernandez or Oscar? Because Oscar to me feels like he's a more, I don't want to say more complete player, but I feel like he's a more reliable player. Like, both physically, like he doesn't seem to break down like Hernandez used to, but also like he brings other players into the game and stuff. Whereas Hernandez, he was deadly, but would very much float in and out of games.
He was very quick. He was a lot faster. I think that was his style of play. I think he was almost more direct than Oscar. And I think we'd seen Hernandez taking on shots more often than Oscar is. I think if you probably look at the stats and you look at like conversion rate of shots to goals, I'd probably assume Oscar's is higher, given that he doesn't shoot as much. But, whenever Hernandez got the ball, I think we almost assumed it was either going to be a shot on target or blocked. Whereas when Oscar gets it, it's either holding it up or he's at like the finishing touch of a move. So it's a hard one. I think I'd still go Hernandez.
Yeah, I think I'd probably need to see the full season from Oscar, see what sort of goal tally he finishes on to really make a call. Because that season for Hernandez in the championship was pretty awesome. And even that season he came back from injury, I think he still got like a hat trick in a game and, smashed a few teams as well. So we'll see how Oscar goes. I just thought it was an interesting comparison because they're probably the two most complete strikers I've seen play for City. I mean, you've got Jelavic and stuff as well, but we didn't see them do it enough.
I stand by Matty Fright being my favorite.
Yeah, that's a fair one as well. And he's probably actually a bit more like Oscar in that sense. Like he's a bit more of a poacher. Yeah, fair call. Cool. Okay, well, we'll talk Wigan now, which is probably the biggest, and it's obviously the most recent performance of the three. Probably the biggest criticism of the Birmingham game was not going on and scoring a few more goals, and we certainly did that against Wigan. I guess I want to take you, first of all, to the moment that they scored to make it 1-1 and how that made you feel. Were you confident that we could still finish it off, or were you kind of getting flashbacks to the Sunderland and Blackpool results?
I think I'd be lying if I said I wasn't getting flashbacks, and I think it was more concerning that we conceded from another set piece. It seems like we've gotten a lot tighter. I was about to say under Rosie, and I think in general our defense has gotten a lot tighter. I think we've conceded anywhere near as many goals, but we're still conceding from set pieces. Like Doc doesn't jump. Doc probably shouldn't be the one marking, but Seri gave away a cheap corner. Like he could have cleared it, tried to play around to be a bit smart, and then that corner led to a goal.
I'll blame the Wigan turf for that one, which I think he was doing as well. He's looking at his boots.
I'll blame Seri.
Fair.
Look, it was a moment where I thought, here we go again. But given the kind of dominance in the first half, I think I also said it in our chat. I was like, we need to score again. We had so much possession and they had offered like nothing. And then all of a sudden, we're away from home. The fans get behind them for like a 10-minute period after they scored. I thought they were going to score again. They had gotten another corner in quick succession. Like it was all them for 10 minutes. So I did get a bit panicked.
Yeah, and I was just going to check because I'm trying to remember the order of events of when we went up 2-1. Was that after we'd made a couple of substitutions or just before? Because I know we obviously when we were 2-1 up, we then took Christie and Oscar off, and I just thought, what are we doing here? 2-1. We're getting ahead of ourselves by taking off Oscar. If they score here to make it 2-2, we don't have anyone to get us back in front. But I couldn't remember if we'd made any changes at one. We brought Woods and Tufan on. Yeah. Which I thought was good moves. I mean, Seri I thought was doing well, but like you were saying with the previous game, I like Tufan off the bench as almost like a like for like. He's not a like for like for Seri, but in terms of having that as the substitution, where Tufan can still help control that midfield, and as a fresh body, replacing Seri, who isn't a young man anymore. I don't mind that as a substitution, but I'll take you back to the start of the game first before we talk about the avalanche of goals at the end of it. Greaves with that goal, great finish. It's 3 goals for the season now for him. And I thought he was tremendous throughout the whole game. It sort of got lost when we started scoring a lot of goals, but for the first 60 minutes or so, he was like the main man for me.
Yeah, he I'd probably say one of his best games, if not the best game he's played for us.
Like there was times he was just like picking up the ball, just like running down that wing and just like gliding past Wigan players like they weren't there, and it was like, geez, he was just on it. Great finish as well. I mean, he's had a few of those where they've just gone over the crossbar, so great to see that nestle in the back of the net. And as you said, like after 10 minutes, you think we're on top. We've had all the chances. We've got the goal. We should be going on with it. They make it 1-1, but then Oscar yet again bobs up to get us in front again. Again, another finish where you're like, oh, it's a bit lucky, but he just seems to always find himself in those positions to finish them.
Yeah, and he scored in the 78th minute. So he's
that's right. He was a bit slow.
he's got a thing for 75 plus. I will take it back a little though and talk about Ali.
Yeah. Good shout.
This is what I meant by him starting to him being picked and trying to play more than he should coming back from injury. He's taken off at halftime. I don't know if it was an aggravation of the injury. I'm not really sure. I think Rosie has said that it was like precautionary, so we'll monitor him to see.
Yeah, you never know how much to believe them when they say that. You're like, it sort of reassures people, and then in a week's time you find out, actually he's
out for 3 months or something.
Yeah,
but I think the precaution would have been to not start him against Birmingham and bring him on 30 minutes in and see how his body held up. Look, I mean, he does great to almost win a pen, and then Greaves finishes it off, because I think it would have been a pen if not. But yeah, I think I saw Rosie say in an interview as well that he takes the blame for bringing him back too quick, which is concerning because it means he's out.
Which is interesting, because Rosie previously had been always saying how he was going to be so careful with players and not play them before he was confident in them, because he didn't want to take those risks. So it could be a bit of him just being the manager and taking the blame and saying, like, buck stops with me. If he is injured, it's my fault, sort of thing. But it's an interesting. I hadn't seen that comment, so that was interesting.
I think it also could have been because Cynic was injured.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
If Cynic was fit, I probably would have started him. I don't think he started a game. He might have, but I don't think we really spoke about it I think it was either Blackpool or Birmingham. But he had a really good game, and I think you were the one who mentioned
Blackpool. I think, yeah.
I think you mentioned that Rosie didn't seem too keen on him. But yeah, I guess we'll see how he comes back from injury.
Well, yeah, that's an interesting one, because there seems a bit of a debate between a few of us about, does he rate him? Is he just injured? Now there's those comments from Tan about there being a bit of interest in him, like internationally. It's a lot of smoke and mirrors going on, particularly with him. But I guess you've got Tufan as well, who's been out of the starting lineup for the last few games. You think you take things on face value? You say, okay, yep, maybe he's just injured. Maybe Tufan's just being rotated out for like Doherty and stuff like that. Or maybe there's things going on behind the scenes, and we just have to take things at face value, I guess.
Yeah, there could be. There's not much we can really say.
Yeah,
we're not in the back room. We don't really know. But yeah, Oscar scoring again, great to see. I think his confidence is back to where it was before. That long spell of no goals and a bit of the 3 games out with the red card. But it was a very clumsy goal.
Yeah,
I will give it that. But
it was the Wigan player it deflected in off was the bloke who got 2 own goals against us in the first game this season. So I think what more? Yeah.
But the thing I'll say, and I think it goes for the second Smith, like maybe in the second or the first Smith goal. The first Smith goal is the ball's out from the back by Macca and Jones, just behind the defense. I'm not sure if they're intended to or they're just clearing it. It seems like they're taking the time to see the run and actually put the ball in. That second goal for Oscar comes through from Smith almost getting in behind the defender, passing it on to Oscar. And then this first goal for Smith, taking the ball very nicely around the keeper and slotting it in from a pretty tight angle. It seems like our defenders are now trying to be playmakers.
Yeah. No, that especially that first Smith goal, the angle that he finishes it from, you just think it's actually pretty tough. Like, he's past the keeper, but there's still a lot to do to finish that off. And he's probably another one that, like, as a chat, we've been a bit split on in terms of his place in the squad. And we'll talk a bit later on about the transfer news and potentially him being loaned out. But I don't think he could have shown a whole lot more than he showed against Wigan to prove that he does have a place at least off the bench in this squad. He's got that ability to get in behind. He stretches the defense. If he can, come out against Huddersfield or even Fulham in the Cup if he gets a chance, remembering he scored against Everton in the Cup last year as well. So he does have sort of pedigree of scoring in the Cup for us. I do wonder if there's still a potential that opinions change and he has a place in the squad, or we've already made the decision and that's why Connolly's potentially coming in.
It'll be interesting to see. I think he'll probably play in the Cup. So if anything, that's his chance to kind of back it up. I would say it was his most clinical game for us. The second goal was great overall, like Slater winning the ball, running down the line and crossing it in to Smith. I think two ex-Sheffield United boys linking up.
But they both 50 grand. I feel like Smith was really cheap as well. but
I don't know.
it might have been a free or something. Yeah.
We'll never forget that Slater's 50 grand though.
Well, yeah, exactly. Slater's 50 grand. I think because we signed Smith when we were under the embargo, and so everyone was like, well, he must be a free transfer then. But then I think Sheffield United were like, he's been signed for a fee. So then we were like, it must be like a nominal fee. So maybe I just had it in my mind he was also 50 grand. It'd be funny if they were both 50 grand from Sheffield United and you're like, we got them both for 100 grand.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't think there's anything else to say about the performance.
Christie, I thought Christie was pretty positive as well.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Did you mean Smith's performance or the performance in general?
I think just in general. I think it was one of our more complete second half performances after the goal.
Yeah. I just mentioned Christie because I thought he was another one who stuck in my mind as he's becoming a lot more confident on the ball. I don't know if it's just now that he's up to full match fitness. Obviously, when he first came to the club, he was probably a bit rusty. But it seems like when he's on the ball, he's really good at retaining possession and sort of playing through the midfield even, really. So he's another one that's really sort of standing out for me now whenever I watch him. And I thought that's what made me particularly nervous when we took Christie and Oscar off for Coyle and Figueiredo, I think, were the two that came on to really shore up the defence. At 2-1, you're sort of thinking if they do make it 2-2, we're sort of stuffed here. We don't really have anyone up the top end of the pitch. And obviously that was proven wrong because Smith then did the business. But I thought it was a really brave move by Rosenior in some senses, and it paid off for him. It's interesting because we don't have a game until the weekend against Fulham and then nothing till the following weekend against Huddersfield. So hopefully that means that because we're now past this sort of clump of games, the players can sort of get a rest. And as we were sort of touching on with Ali, hopefully it's not too bad and he's back. It was pointed out in the coverage. It was his 4th assist in 7 games this season, which you sort of forget because the games have been so few and far between, but he is having a pretty decent season.
Yeah. The one thing I do want to mention is I don't understand the obsession of making substitutions when we're defending a corner.
Yeah. We did we mention that in the chat that I was like, that's got to just be a rule.
Don't make 2 games in a row.
Yeah.
That we've done
just
that.
Playing as fire.
Especially bringing on someone like Figs. Figs always scares me.
1000%.
So it's like I want us to stop that.
I can imagine as him running on, or as a player already on the pitch, you're like, well, who's he marking? Who am I marking? It just causes confusion. Just wait till it's a throw in or goal kick or whatever it is, then make the changes. It's playing with fire. It makes me nervous as well. Cool. Okay, I'll give my votes for this one first. Then I sort of gave them away a little bit, I suppose, in my comments, but I've gone Greaves for the 3 votes. I think his performance got a little bit overshadowed by Smith because of the 2 goals, and people were talking more about that than Greaves. But I thought the way he started the game and carried on with it, really, as you were saying as well, probably his best game for the club. Really fantastic to see him thriving under Rosenior. Smith, I gave the 2 votes to, as you said as well, probably his best game for the club as well. Well, I'd say definitely. He's doubled his City goal tally just in that game, especially that second goal in terms of as a natural finish. I think the movement to be in the right place to tap it in, as impressive as the first goal was, they were kind of equally impressive for different reasons. And then I gave the 1 vote to Christie because I thought he was a really standout defender for us as well. But you could throw a hat over half the team or 3/4 of the team really for votes in this one.
Yeah, I agree with your 3 and 2. But for Christie, I'll replace him with Macca. I think.
Yeah, good shout.
He was very solid. And obviously, you can't knock out an assist for a centre back.
Yeah, and the point was made that sort of similar to last season, he came into the side in November, December, and we started to really settle into a pretty strong defensive solidity. And he's done the same this season. So you'd hope that he's kind of in the team for good in that sense. And Figueiredo is more someone that comes on later in games because McLaughlin has rarely put a foot wrong. And you'd really hope that he can really sort of make the spot his own. I was sort of starting to feel a bit sorry for him at the start of the season because Figueiredo was making mistakes and he wasn't getting that chance.
Yeah. He did almost score an own goal against Birmingham.
Oh, yeah.
But I think he still had very consistent games.
Fair enough. Look, we'll run through the transfer news now because there is a little bit of news that came out before that Wigan game. Tan Kessler doing an interview with BBC, I believe, just to give a few updates. The biggest one's probably Malcolm Ebowie from Crystal Palace, where there still seems a bit of doubt about whether we'll be able to land him. I mean, Rosenior's speaking as if he's our player in the sense that he's saying, he'll sign, he's rejected a few clubs, he's on his way. Kessler being a little bit less certain in saying that at this stage, he's our player. Like at this stage, he's going to sign with us. A few journalists coming out saying QPR have entered the race for him, and you can kind of think, London club, maybe he'd be more inclined to go there. But a lot of people like Derby supporters and everyone, because he played for Derby before signing for Palace, saying if we land him, that he's, he'd be one of the best players in the division. He's unplayable, would make us a really exciting prospect. So, I mean, I haven't seen a lot of him. I'm sure you probably haven't seen a lot of him either, but just, I guess with that buzz around him, what are your thoughts on him?
My stances on transfer speculation. I don't listen to it until it happens. In saying that, I think the players that we're looking at / linked with are important position wise. I think we're looking for another striker as cover in Connolly, although he's done absolutely nothing in Italy. And then I guess I'm pretty sure Bowie's a winger. It should be nice to have, but that also makes me think that Cynic could probably be on his way out. I don't believe any of it until it happens, but this nonsense of like, this is like the best player in the league or he's unplayable. Like, I just don't know where that comes from. He's never played in the league. I don't think so.
No, he played 16 games for Derby last season. He scored 1 goal, so that's it. There's your context. And it's not like he scored like 8 goals in 16 games or something as an 18-year-old, but he did play a bit last season.
Okay. Look, we'll see.
He's made a few appearances off the bench for Palace this season. I didn't realize. I thought he hadn't been in the first team at all, but he's made, I think, 3 or 4 appearances off the bench for them. So in that sense, as you say, we'll see. Connolly as well, as you say, hasn't done a whole lot anywhere he's gone really in recent years. Both of them sort of links to Rosenior, Ebowie at Derby, Connolly at Brighton, from where Rosenior did coach him in the under-23s. You have to think he's looking at these guys and thinking he knows them well enough to get a tune out of them. And, we sort of talked about it before, but Connolly seemingly coming in as a Smith replacement, you'd sort of not wanting to be putting Smith out the door after he scored, 2, 3, 4 goals potentially by the time he leaves, and Connolly comes in and doesn't do anything. But that one at least seems a bit more likely.
I think so.
Yeah. In terms of transfers out, I think Tan was saying that there's interest internationally. We were talking before about the fact that I think it was Oscar, Tete, Cynic, and Tufan getting interest from overseas, which isn't that surprising. I mean, we signed them from foreign to England clubs. So no doubt there'd be clubs that were interested in them in the summer that would probably be monitoring their situations at the moment. I suppose the interesting ones would be Tufan and Cynic, who at the moment aren't in the squad. Tete obviously out injured, but no doubt will be back in once he's fit. They're probably the two I'd be looking at saying, if we're trimming the squad, we want to get the wage bill down, we want to recoup a bit of what we spent in the summer, I'd be looking at Tufan and Cynic and saying we can probably get what we paid for them back in fees, because obviously they've got longer deals now with us. Tufan's now pretty fit. Like, he's looking pretty good. This is probably the best football he's been playing in a few years. Like, he was pretty poor at Watford last season. You would think there'll be clubs that would at least say, we'll pay £2-3 million for these guys.
I don't think I would necessarily be upset if Tufan left. I think Cynic still has a lot that he can do. I think every time he's come on, he's always like taken it to the defense. He's been that attacking player that we've looked for. If Oscar and Tete are genuinely linked with anyone, I'd want us to block those two happening. I don't think we can afford losing Oscar. I think we saw what happened when we lost KLP. And, Tete is almost back. I'm pretty sure he should be back this month. So I also think this week break probably helps him. So we'll see. And I think him and Oscar are a pretty good partnership. Or at least having one of them to be able to come off the bench. Like, if we do get Connolly, we've got 3 strikers now that are like all and out strikers. Oscar's proven it. Tete can hold the ball up. Connolly, who knows?
Yeah.
But I think we're starting to look a bit more attacking, or at least have more options, because I think that's been our biggest problem, is what happens when our best striker gets injured. We don't really have anyone to bring off the bench. I mean, sure, Smith proves us wrong, but generally we don't have that option.
Yeah. If I don't know, hypothetical. If Everton came to us in the summer, they've just been relegated, they come to us and they say we will pay £15 million, £18 million for Oscar, or we're sitting there saying we'll give him a 5-year contract and lock him down for longer, which option would you prefer to see the club take? Huge fee that we could then huge fee that we can then reinvest in the squad, or you see Oscar as like, he's a reliable scorer, he's proven, he knows the club, you know, you'd bird in hand rather than two in the bush, you keep what you know.
It depends on what our ambitions are. Like, if our ambitions are to get promoted, then sure, maybe we'll take the money and buy players that have just been relegated. But if our ambition is to build a side, then I would probably keep him.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I'd probably keep him too. I think if we could work I think he's got 2 years left on his deal after this year. Maybe there's that 1 year add-on. I don't know. I'd be looking at giving him a new deal already based on what we've seen. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I definitely wouldn't be selling him or Tete before the summer, if at all. But we shall see. All right, well, we'll wrap things up. We've got the preview of Fulham to come. We'll do a quick game of Who Am I before that, if you're good to go for that.
We'll see.
This one, I think it should be okay.
You say that every time.
I do. I mean, most of the time people get it. I think there's only been 1 or 2 that have been stumped, but I think this one should be all right. We'll see. I made 99 league appearances for City and I scored 3 goals.
99.
Yeah, 99. Couldn't stick around for 1 more appearance.
Yeah, wow. I don't know.
I'll give you the years, that might help. So I joined City in 2014. So that's second Premier League season under Bruce. And I left in 2017. So that's just after the Marco Silva relegation. I can give you
the 3 goals with the 3 goals in like spread over the seasons.
Yeah, I want to say they were. I actually don't recall. I know there was, I think 2 of them might be in his penultimate season. Don't know if he scored a different season for one of them. They might have all been from the same season.
You say left in 2017?
Yeah.
To where?
I was thinking about this. I'm like, I think the the club he left to and the club he signed from would both be massive giveaways. I'll say that he left and joined a club, like a Big 6 club.
Maguire?
No, yeah, it was going to be one of the 2. It's not Maguire.
So it's Is it Robertson?
It's Robertson. Yeah. Nice one. Yeah, they were very much intertwined because they both joined at the same time. Yeah, no, that was Robbo. Players left back, wore the number 3, Andy Robertson. Yeah, I was going to say, like, if I say Liverpool, or even if I say like joined from Dundee, it's like, no, it's a bit obvious. Nah, good one. Well, I mean, speaking of Marco Silva, good transition. We've got Fulham on the weekend in the FA Cup. Few reunions potentially in this one. Seri potentially up against his former club as well. I actually, I said in the chat the other day, I actually reckon I give us a pretty decent chance in this one. I think Fulham played this morning against Leicester in the league. They've got Chelsea midweek next week in the league as well. Mitro nursing an ankle injury, although granted he now can't play next week in the Premier League. I think he picked up a yellow card, so he could play against us. I mean, they're high enough in the table that maybe they'd take it seriously. But we're sort of in that middle, probably not going to go down now, knock on wood, probably not going to make the playoffs, but anything could happen. There's no reason not, and we don't have a game till the following weekend. There's no reason not to take this seriously, but I don't know. Do you have any care about whether we take this seriously or not?
I have none.
Okay.
I stand by saying look.
Don't
I'd
want a
want to
Premier
see
League
players.
scout?
Sorry, no, I haven't. No, I don't. It's hard because I want to see us continuously win, but at the same time, I think I'd want to play. I want to give some players that don't get enough minutes. I think this is a perfect opportunity to do that. Like a loss in the cup, sure, okay, that's it. Whereas a loss in the league, especially given the place that we're in now, like sitting 7 above relegation, but we're only 6 from 6th. Actually,
Yeah.
we're 6th, 5th.
Yeah.
So I still think if we get the right signings, we can make a push for promotion. I would rather save our players and not have them injured in a cup game and play some of the players that either will be leaving or haven't played that much. I think it's also a really good chance for some under 21s to come in.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking in terms of players that haven't played much, I guess what you're looking at, like Elder, Figueiredo, Smith starting instead of Oscar, Cynic if he's fit, but then that's another one where you don't really want to push him if he's injured. Tufan, yeah. Longman, who's sort of been in and out of the side. Woods, I guess.
I mean,
would you start Low to Tyler in goal?
Yeah, you could. The 2 Chelsea loanies, Simmons.
Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, I'm surprised they're still here. To be honest, I thought they might have already gone back.
I think they'll be leaving.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's a good. Like they could start. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you said you want Terry to play against his former side.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I sort of said in the chat, that like I'd hope that he does, but I could totally see the reasoning that like why risk him, like why risk an ankle injury or something to pretty much one of your most important players in a game that ultimately doesn't mean a whole lot.
Look, that being said, how many times has a player gotten injured in training?
Yeah, well, that's right.
So if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Like there's nothing that's going to stop it. So you may as well get a run out.
Yeah. And speaking of reunions, I mean, Harry Wilson probably going to be in their starting 11, which would be pretty cool. I don't know. I suppose we would have played him last season. I think he was injured at one stage, but I think we would have played him last season when he was at Fulham for their promotion push. We haven't beaten them since 2019, I think it was, that season where we had, pretty much promotion aspirations first half and they evaporated second half. But Bowen, Bowler and Eves on the score sheet in that one is a pretty unlikely 2 of the 3. Would be nice to get a win against them again this season, I guess.
It would be nice, but I also won't I won't be as upset as if it would be if we were losing in the championship. Like if we, I think we have Huddersfield next.
Yeah.
Like if we lost to Fulham, but then beat Huddersfield, or if we beat Fulham and then lost to Huddersfield, I would much rather take the first option.
Yeah, that's right. I think I definitely see this game as like a free hit. And that's why I'm looking forward to it in that sense, because I'm like, I'll really enjoy the game. If we lose, it doesn't really matter. But it's just like a fun game where we can just see how we go against the Premier. It's sort of like when we played, was it Leeds when we were in League One in the League Cup and we beat them? And it was like, especially because it was Leeds, it was like the ultimate sort of win. But if we'd lost, it was like, oh, who really cares? They're a Premier League side.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Are we home or away for it?
We're home, so I'm hoping it's a pretty decent crowd.
Then we'll lose. Yeah, then we'll lose.
Yeah, it is an interesting one. I mean, like our home form really needs to pick up. And I mean, like talking about crowds, I think the tickets for this game are really cheap, so should be seeing a bumper crowd. Obviously, about 2,500 went away to Wigan, which I think they were saying was like the biggest following in any of the 4 stands was the City following in that stand. So it really feels like after 6-7 years of pretty poor crowds that everyone's sort of getting behind the side again. Really good feel-good factor back at City and back at the MKM, which is awesome to see.
Yeah, I just wish we hadn't only won 1 in 10 at home. So I wish
I'm trying to remember, because I feel like it was almost the same last season, or was it reversed last season under Shotter? I feel like we were pretty poor at home last season as well. I can't remember though.
It seems like we just don't like playing at home. I mean, our last home victory was against Wigan.
Yeah, right. Okay. Puts it in context. I do wonder if it's a bit of a, I don't know, is it when you're at home, like the the crowd maybe gets on their backs a bit more with like the passing around a bit more, whereas away, because you're frustrating the home fans, like you feed off that energy, whereas when it's your fans, you're kind of I don't know, I'm just guessing on that. Like it could just be a coincidence that we've played worse teams away from home. I'm not too sure. I think we've got Huddersfield at home, so that could probably put that theory to a test.
I hope so. That's a big game.
It is a big game. So I think that's a very good opportunity then to sign off from this one, to say thank you for joining me. It was a lot of games to get through, and we're sort of caught up to date now. Got the Fulham game to look forward to before, as you say, a massive game against Huddersfield in 2 weeks.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No worries. And thank you everyone for listening in. We'll be back this time next week to review that Fulham game and look ahead to Huddersfield. But until then, come on City.